If you're ready to experience more peace and joy in your life, if you want to feel more comfortable in your own skin, and if you're ready to discover and expand on your energetic gifts and personal power, you're in the right place. So here's your host, Kelle Sparta.
Welcome back to Spirit Guides. I'm your host, Kelle Sparta, transformational shaman and spiritual business coach. I'm here on Wednesdays for our Align Business, Spiritual Business Days, as always with my best friend in Boquete, Katherine Loranger. And she is a spiritual business coach as well and freaking amazing at her job. I know, because she does some coaching for me periodically. And So today, and I just want to acknowledge that Katherine's not feeling well. So if you guys see her mute or cough or whatever, that's what you're seeing. She caught my cold. I gave it to her. It's my bad. I'm the bad girl. And so she's here and she's being a trooper and recording with us today. So today we're going to talk about the balancing of the masculine and the feminine in your business, balancing those energies. And so, Katherine, I know you've got some ideas on this, so I'm going to let you start, and then I'll jump in.
Okay. So, yes, with the husky voice here.
Ooh, very sexy.
I thought it would be helpful, actually, to start by talking about, like, what is masculine energy? What is feminine energy? And then kind of starting to talk about how we balance those, so that I can share kind of my take on it. And then if you want to share your take on it, then we can kind of collaborate on how we do the balancing. So masculine energy, and again, this is not about gender. It's not what we're talking about here. It's just about the energies. And so I think it was one of the last episodes, we talked about spiritual laws of the universe, and there is a law of gender and a law of polarity. And so gender is more about it's the frequency, it's the type of energy, has nothing to do with your actual physical sex. So you could be a woman who predominantly shows up with masculine energy. You can be, kind of a man who shows up with feminine energy, and everybody generally has both of those energies. So masculine energy tends to be more direct, linear, assertive, ambitious, disciplined, goal-oriented, logical, action-oriented, problem-solving. It likes to provide and protect. It's very purpose-driven, very task-oriented, and it wants to give to the feminine. And so as you hear that, and as I say it, I'm like, wow, I really can tend to operate, especially in business, we can really tend to operate from the masculine because it is very goal-oriented. Feminine energy, on the other hand, and again, tends to be more free-flowing, cyclical, fluid, intuitive, connected to emotions, can multitask, values connection, creative, artistic, soft, nurturing, collaborative, is able to receive. When the masculine can create that container of safety, the feminine then can actually receive into it, lean into it. So the feminine, with the cold here, is the magnetism. The masculine is the action oriented. So that's kind of my take on those energies. Kelle, do you want to add to that?
Nope, that's exactly how I would have described them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So how do we then, excuse me, how do we then balance those energies in our business? So what's your thought? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, so it's very interesting because I'm actually doing a lot of this in my business right now. And it took me years to get to the balance of the feminine in my business, because my masculine is all about the how and the structure and the orientation and the blah 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 blah. Gotta have the big picture, blah, right? And I found that my trust in the universe was not so great around my business. And that's really what it takes to balance and allow that feminine energy in, because the feminine energy is about flowing with what is. And if, I've recently had if you've been listening to the Friday episodes, are they published yet? I don't know. They might not be. I don't know. We record so much in advance. I don't know what's going on anymore. But there are some episodes either already on or coming up shortly that are about human design. And in the human design charts, if you are a generator, like 70% of the world, right? You're supposed to be responding to offers, not trying to go out and generate things, right? And I have always sucked at that because I like to, I have tended to be quite the control freak for my business. And so, there's this question of, how do you respond, but yet get your business out and all the things. And so one of the things that I have found for myself is that when I just do what I love to do in the business, which is the podcasting, right? That's the primary form of marketing that we do for my business. And then, people tend to just show up, right? And so, I feel inspired at some point to say, hey, if you've been binging this podcast for, a while now, it's time to get on the phone and sign up for a discovery call because you're clearly in alignment with the work and you're clearly in alignment with me and you're clearly in alignment. So, what are you waiting for? And so, if that's you, by the way, this is your message to get on the phone and schedule a discovery call. But I get inspired to say that every so often, right? And that tends to have people sign up and say, well, you told me to, so I did. It's like, you called me out. I felt like you were looking at me. And it's like, yep, well, that's spirit saying, hey, this is time to do this, right? And, it tends to correlate with when people are ready for that. And so, that's a way to bring your intuition into your business. It's a way, I think most of us really do the masculine side more. And so, I want to talk a lot more about the feminine side because I think that's the harder one to do for most people. And so, being in your intuition around what you say yes to and what you don't say yes to. And I want to be really clear, your intuition is going to suck if you are in desperation. So before you try to access your intuition to have you figure out how to do, or what you're supposed to do next sort of thing, I really want you to spend a large amount of time stepping into your faith in the universe and relaxing and knowing that, you're not going to go hungry. You're not going to be homeless. You're not going to, have to declare bankruptcy or whatever, right? You need to really sit with that energy and try and lean into your trust in the universe to relax and to clear your energy field of your inherent energy of lack before you try to utilize your intuition to answer the questions, because otherwise your inherent energy of lack will get in the way of that.
Yeah, and you're just a quick note about your intuition. Your intuition is never going to feel frantic or stressed, right? Your intuition is always going to be calm, relaxed, clear. So if you're curious, about like, is this actually my intuition I'm connecting with? If it feels stressed, lack energy, frantic, urgent, that's not your intuition.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And so, the other thing that happens is that random things show up when you are relaxed and you wait for them, right? I have the spiritual business consultation, which you guys heard last week, I've been incubating that for far longer than anything I've ever put out in my entire life. And it's because I've been sitting with it and saying, okay, what do I want to do? How do I want to do it? I went through multiple iterations. Katherine can attest to that because we've had so many conversations about how this is going to work and what we're going to do and so on and so forth. And I am still iterating, right? I'm still making things better and easier for me and more efficient for the clients and everything else, just because, I'm giving myself the space to be easeful about it. I'm only taking in a couple clients a month. I'm only working with them to make sure everything goes smoothly and it's all going well and easefully, and that everybody gets the time they need to be onboarded. And, as I'm rolling this out, I'm learning more about the process with people, and I'm being able to optimize within that space because I'm not in this desperate space of putting everything out immediately and having to onboard as many people as humanly possible in order to make sure that I can pay my bills, right? I've lived in that space in the past and it sucks, right? So I am, part of this is about being in alignment with the universe and saying, okay, yeah, I'm trusting that this is going to work, right? And then being willing to take the time it takes to do it well, right? Not just slapdash throwing things together and hoping it goes, right? And, I'm also trusting. I had a spiritual eviction. You don't even know about this yet, Katherine, because you've been sick and I was sick and then you were sick. And so we haven't even had a chance to talk. But just before the Mamma Mia production, I hired on somebody who I was super excited to have on the team. We spent a week getting her onboarded and set up in all the systems and everything else. And then she quit in the middle of tech week of Mamma Mia. So it's like, oh no, right? So now my new assistant who was supposed to be doing 20 hours a week worth of work for me is now gone. My old assistant who was supposed to just be supervising is now in a space where she's only working half the time she was working before, but she has to take over all the tasks again. And I'm like, okay, so we're just crisis managing. It's like only do the stuff that's super important and let all the long-term tasks can just wait, right? And now we're onboarding somebody new. And I didn't think I could get somebody better than the person I had before, but this guy's going to be awesome. He is like 10 times better than the person we had before. And Spirit just went, nope, she's got to go because this guy's over here. And he wouldn't have been ready until then, right? So, it's like this whole thing that's happening, right? So we're onboarding him today. So, these things happen and I could have panicked and been like, I've got to jump out of this and go back into that. And I did not have the energy to do that because I was sick throughout the whole tech week and then going into the performances. And so I did not have the energy to like jump in and try and make up the difference. And I was just like, we're just going to do the best we can with what we have for the next couple of weeks until we can catch up. And that's just what it is. I'm just going to trust that there's a reason and I'm going to trust that it's going to work out. And that's just how it is. And so all of these things, right? And on top of it, one of the things that's a benefit when I hire somebody in my company is I give them access to my classes. I'm like, that's a benefit of working for me is that you have access to all the programs. And this guy, the other woman didn't express any interest in that. And this guy in his answer to the welcome to his offer letter said, and I want to get started on that as soon as possible. I want to talk to you about that. I'm like, fantastic. So he's actually a much better fit, right? So all of these things, we love it, right? So, but this is part of stepping into the feminine energy, right? Is being able to just be with what is and not have to try and overly control it and be like, too much, right? But that's hard to do when you're not in a place of trust in the universe. Now, I'm going to talk on the other side, unless you want to jump in with anything on the feminine side.
What do I want to say? So many things. So in the work that I do, we use the language holding it with an open hand, right? And learning how when something happens or doesn't happen in the way that you had intended or hoped or planned, that you hold it with an open hand and the statement is this or something even greater still. Because when you're holding it with that closed hand, that's that control, that's that fear, that's that limited mind, that's the ego mind, right? You're not open to the possibility that the universe could have something like way better in store for you. And if you're not open to it, you can't receive it. So what would it be like? And here's just a question for listeners, is to hold something with that open hand and say this or something even greater still. And so when it doesn't work out, that you're knowing that something even better is on the way. And Kelle, if you want to jump in and then I'll kind of go, I can talk at the end and yeah, because I've got lots and lots and lots to say.
Yeah. So what I was going to say about the masculine side is that if you are having a hard time with the masculine side, if you are living more in your feminine and you have a hard time with structure and you have a hard time with figuring out what to do and which way to go and things like that, there are a few things there. One is you could have a lack of clarity which could be limiting your masculine energy, because we often will use a lack of clarity as a resistance pattern to getting things done. And it is a resistance pattern. A lack of clarity is you asking the universe for the answer that you are supposed to be providing for yourself. It's not a lack of clarity, it's a lack of choice, is what it comes down to, is you haven't made the choice.
And self-trust.
That too. Yeah. That's why you haven't made the choice, is because of lack of self-trust, which of course reflects a lack of trust in the universe, because those are one and the same, right? Mm-hmm. So all of these things, right? It's also treating the universe as a parent instead of a partner. And that's in there too. But in terms of, if you're looking to get more into your masculine energy, it becomes more about, so the feminine has a tendency to want to just sort of be with what is. There's a resistance to creating structure, because the feminine doesn't like to be structured. The feminine likes to flow, right? And what you have to keep in mind is that the perfect balance is where the masculine holds the container for the feminine to be liquid in, right? And so you can't just be liquid and expect that your business is going to work, because you need to have the container for that liquid to operate within, right? And so you don't have to structure yourself to within an inch of your life. You don't have to do that, right? Those of us who are overly masculine have a tendency to do that. But you do need to create a framework for your business to sit upon, right? You need to create that container for your business to operate within. And if you are not good at that on your own, and you've tried and it doesn't work for you, then this would be the time to get a coach or a business partner who can help you create that structure, right? Because once the structure is in place, you can be as liquid as you want, right? You need structure for things like the business itself, and for the marketing. That needs some structure as well, so that you have follow-up sequences and, marketing that goes out on a regular basis, and not just sort of when you feel like it and things like that, because consistency is key to getting noticed on the internet. That's just how it works. But these are the sorts of things. Now, can you do an entirely feminine-based business? Yes, I know a few people who have been successful in it, but they are few and far between. And, they also tend to have businesses that do very well for a while, and then they feel a shift and they go in a completely different direction, and then they end up starting their business over again. And so they tend to go through cycles. That's what I've seen of the people I know who do business like that and who do it well. But they go through feast and famine cycles as they're transitioning from one business model to the next, one business outflow to the next. So that's what I wanted to say. If you want to go ahead and keep your chatty going.
Yeah. So as you're talking, I'm, kind of thinking like, yeah, this is actually the structure I take my clients through, is where we start with a vision, which is what would I love? And the question, what would I love, actually evokes a more soulful response. It helps you to transcend your own self-imposed limitations when you really, really allow yourself to consider that question. And so when you ask, what would I actually really love? Like, what's really, really on my heart's desire? You're tapping into spirit, soul's, universe's idea, your idea for your own life, and the potentiality of who you could be and what you could experience on this earth plane. And so when we ask that, what would I love? That's you're opening up, right? You're really tuning into the feminine, to spirit, to intuition. And then from that question, we create a 3-year vision. So when you go 3 years out, and you can do this as I'm describing this, like you can be taking notes and guiding yourself through this process. So we then go 3 years out, because 3 years is generally enough to confound, to quiet the subconscious mind, which wants to operationalize it. It wants to go into, well, how is that going to happen? It's going to want to keep you in your comfort zone, which is just the life you've known up until now. So the 3 years, right, when we ask that question, well, 3 years from now, it's all worked out. The subconscious is like, well, maybe that could happen. Like there's a possibility. And so you start to open up to what could be for your life. And then from the 3 years, we bring it, and this is where I'm working with businesses and conscious entrepreneurs. We bring it into 12 months. So what would that 3-year vision, what would it look like in 12 months? What would I love in 12 months? And we start to get really tangible. Then we identify 2 goals, only 2 for 12 months, because if the more goals you have, the less likely you are to achieve any of them. So if you think about water, the power of water, if you're just gently sprinkling a lawn compared to the power of a pressure washer. I just pressure washed my driveway and carport, which is like incredibly satisfying to me. But the difference in power when you focus energy. And so that's what the structure is, the masculine is it's allowing you to create some focus so you get greater magnitude in the energy that you're working with. So then we identify only 2 goals so that you're focused and the energy is focused on that. And then we actually create benchmarks. Every quarter you have benchmarks. And then we create an operationalized plan for the first 90 days. So my brain is still kind of foggy here. So that's the masculine, that's the structure, that's the goals, that's the how, that's the vision. And then from there, then we start to work with spiritual laws and feminine energy. Well, how do I hold that with an open hand? So I still need to be in action in service of my vision. But how am I in action where I'm actually open to those intuitive guidances, where I am relaxed, where I am at the vibrational frequency of the person in my vision, where I am holding it with an open hand? Is there something even greater still? But it's that balance between needing to be in action and also being guided by, right? Aligning your energy as you're doing that. And, I think of one client when we started working together, they were maybe like not even $10,000 months. And then at the end, they were like $100,000 months. And so they were like super, super in their masculine energy. And that allowed them to get to a certain point, but there's a limit on that. And so I remember one of the things that we did is when we're creating that vision, we're putting the important things in first. So holiday time, vacations, anniversaries, trips, professional development, training, retreats, all of those things. And so they had on their calendar put a holiday, and when they planned for it, they booked it, they had the accommodation. And when they left for the holiday, they had no work on the books. So the previous pattern would have been to panic, and Kelle, you talked about that, to freak out, to cancel the holiday, to go into that push masculine energy. But they're learning a different pattern. They're learning the balance. And so they said, no, I'm going to go. I'm going to trust the universe. I've created the structure. I've told the universe, this is what I'm creating with my business and my life. So they left on holiday and they came back and they had like 4 brand new clients out of the blue, because the universe is like, I got you. I hear what you're doing and I see how you're showing up. So for listeners, again, start with the vision. We've talked about that in other episodes. What would I love? And then get really, really concrete, really, really clear with it. And then bring it into 12 months. And then you create only 2 goals, maximum 2 goals. If you're in business, one of them is likely going to be a revenue goal, because that's how you measure results in business, is the money. And then often I find that with business owners, the second goal is related to health. Again, it's that kind of like work-life balance. And then from there, you create those every quarter benchmarks. And then you create that detailed work plan, and you're building a calendar with the important things in first. And then you're learning to step into, how do I work with my intuition? How do I hold it with an open hand? How do I balance the masculine and feminine energies? How do I take that action? How do I start to shift into a new identity? And again, we talked about all of this in other episodes.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I love that.
I'm excited.
And I think that's a great note to end on. I think that's exactly where we want to be. So I want to say thank you so much for listening. If you have found this episode useful, please share it with a friend or a bunch of friends who could also use it. So that's how we grow this podcast, is through your sharing of it. So thank you. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And remember that what you focus on is what expands, and what you intend is what you create. So choose wisely.
Rumor on
So that's it for today's episode of Spirit Guides Podcast. Head on over to iTunes, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen and subscribe to the show. Every week, one lucky listener who subscribes and posts a review on iTunes will be entered into a drawing for a $10,000 value grand prize and a private reading with Kelle Sparta herself. Be sure to head on over to spiritguidespodcast.com and pick up a free copy of Kelle's gift and join us on the next episode.